Morning. It's 9:30 a.m., Tuesday, October 22nd. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with a prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we beseech your divine guidance in this meeting. Keep us ever mindful of our obligation. Grant us, dear Lord, wisdom, tolerance, and courage that we may well serve our county and fulfill our trust. Amen.
Move to approve the minutes of the October 15th meeting.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes. All right. Any public comment regarding pending resolutions? Seeing none, we will go ahead and proceed. Jeremy Cinco, our sanitary engineer.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
4 resolutions for consideration today. The first is authorizing change order number 1 for the Fenn and Marks Road Elevated Water Storage Tank Project. The second is authorizing change order number 3 for the Fenn and Marks Road Water Main Replacement Project. The third is declaring the necessity to rehabilitate Ryan Road Elevated Water Storage Tank and the Westfield Standpipe and authorizing the sanitary engineer to commence advertising for bids. And the final resolution is determining the necessity to close the Marks and Spieth Road intersection for water main work.
Move to approve the 4 resolutions.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. A Human Resources Director, Holly Murin.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have
Morning.
3 resolutions today. The first is our personnel changes. We have 1 new hire in dog shelter. We have 1 rate increase in transit, 1 leave of absence in human resources, and 1 resignation at Job and Family Services. Second resolution is extending an agreement with Sedgwick Claims Management Services. And the final resolution is amending the compensation plan administration and point factor manual for the Medina County employees.
Move to approve 3 resolutions.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Next, our Finance Director, Brett Thomas. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have 11 resolutions for you today. Our first resolution is increases of appropriations. Our notable one on there is stormwater. We have 160 that's going into that. That department will be receiving a chunk of that back through fees from developers, just so that you guys are aware. As well, there's also an increase for one of our last ARPA projects, which is our admin buildings elevator for $296,000. Our second resolution is for transfer of appropriations. The highlight ones on here, we have a very long list from Medina County Board of Developmental Disabilities that is largely due to the discontinuation of their preschool program. So those funds are moving over into their school age funds. As well, we have the Board of Elections. Our last adjustment was well thought out, but they had some considerable expenses that came through over this last couple weeks for one of their payroll lines. We are increasing this at this point by another $100,000. That's actually going to be in excess of the original request that was provided. So that will be, originally that was requested at 240, and we're now at 280 for that line. Third resolution is expenditure adjustments for various funds. The key one on here was actually just a payroll changeover due to grants. So there was some payroll that needed to hit the general fund from one of our grant lines. We're getting that tidied up. Our fourth resolution is the cash transfer for the county homes levy fund. That'll cover the second half taxes from last year. Our fifth resolution is cash transfers for other various funds, which is actually really all OOA's transfers, also for their levy funds. Our sixth resolution is the creation of the Board of Elections November Readiness Grant for the amount of $14,197. And that is for the November's election. Our seventh resolution is the election official training grant, and that is for $16,423 to help offset some of those costs. Our eighth resolution is creation of the Sheriff's Office Mobile Command Fund. This is for a new mobile command unit that they are in the process of acquiring, and that is in the amount of $756,869. A good chunk of that is going to be coming from federal grants. Our ninth resolution is creation of Victim Assistance Fiscal Year 25 Fund in the amount of $53,886.29. Our 10th resolution is the expenses of county officials. Nobody's out of state this time, but I do have to again note and we discussed last time that there would be one more of a late filing from the auditor's office. So those dates are noted on here. And then on our 11th and final resolution, we have our weekly bills in the amount of $2,548,960.82.
Move to approve the 11 resolutions.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Just a couple things. First on the, you mentioned the federal grant for the vehicle. That was also, I think the balance of those funds are coming from auto title from the clerk of court. So we appreciate that, but it's not general fund money. I just think it's important to note that. And then on the Board of Elections, with the new transfer, is the anticipation that will see us through?
I am not 100% certain on that. What
Okay.
I can say is that it should be sufficient to see us through the election itself.
Okay.
So
Well,
that we
can
can
talk during your update, maybe. I just want, because with us being where we are right now, and I know we had moved money the last time thinking that it might get us there, and now we're moving more, and so I just want to make sure we've got our eye on
Yep.
what the actual number would be. The other point I want to note about that I think is important is we had a couple of grants in here. Those totaled maybe $32,000 relative to the $100,000 that we're transferring, much of which is tied to mandates that we have that are unfunded by the state for how these things run. So we've always got to keep our eyes on that as well. So I'm not here to criticize how that operation is conducted as much as just to kind of, we still need to keep our eye on it. So.
I would also like to highlight there's been a couple unforeseen additional need for staff with security concerns and some of the other items that they have been having to deal with there.
We
So,
absolutely want to do that the right way and go above and beyond what our requirements are, but there is a funding component to it. So thanks, and we'll probably chat about that a little more too. So
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Harrison?
yes,
Sweattick? Yes. Hambley?
Yes. Very good.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. And Matt Springer, our County Administrator.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have 6 resolutions to consider. The first one is authorizing a tuberculosis funding agreement between the Ohio Department of Health and the Medina County Board of Commissioners. This is an annual agreement that we've done each year, and this would be in a total amount of $7,760. The second resolution is approving an agreement with Maximus to provide professional consulting services for the county. This would be for a new term, January 1 of 2025 through the period of March 31st of 2028 at an annual cost of $13,500. And this helps us with indirect cost expenses. The third resolution is declaring Medina County motor vehicle as excess property. The sanitary engineer has a 2016 Chevy Silverado that's used as part of their line maintenance vehicle fleet, and they wish to auction this vehicle as it's no longer needed. The fourth resolution is approving a donation of a war bond building to the Medina County Historical Society. This is a historical structure that the Cleveland Clinic had donated to the commissioners years ago, and we now wish to turn it over to the Historical Society. And then sorry about that. Fifth resolution is for 2 change orders. This is associated with our concrete parking lot project at a total amount of $39,389. And then the sixth and final is a NDA disclosure agreement for the sanitary engineer.
Move to approve the 6 resolutions.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? I just want to comment about the War Bond building. I just thank the Historical Society. It kind of took a circuitous route, whatever. It was being moved, and the request was originally to move it here on county property, and then it got moved to the Historical Society. And since it's been there, I think it's final resting place. Hopefully, most likely they've made some major upgrades, improvements. They've had a lot of community volunteers redo it. It's very, very nice to have it over there and fit within that whole, if you will, historical complex. They'll have an education center eventually. They've got a grant for it. So this kind of all fits in there. And for those that may not know, the history War Bond bill originally was on the square during when they were doing the War Bond drive in the 1940s. And then afterwards, it was just finding various locations, and for a number of years was over the Medina Hospital. But I just thank them for being willing to transfer it and donate it, and for Historical Society to decide to accept that as a permanent acquisition for them for historical purposes. So, and like I said, it's real nice to see the community come together and kind of fix that to preserve it. There's not many War Bond buildings around still, because they were meant to be temporary structures, not permanent structures. So, roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick? Yes. Hambley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, now for department updates, we got Shannon Ryan, our transit director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just reporting on September. Had a lighter ridership month, but still the numbers are still strong. We're seeing a lot of efficiencies with our MC Flex, allowing us to carry more passengers in those areas. Receiving a lot of positive feedback at different events I've been at, and I think it's starting to really take hold in some of the areas like Brunswick and things like that. Our trip denials were a little bit more controllable. That average of 20 right now is seeing what 19 or 20. We'd like to have that low. We are working on some things with our staff to get that number to 0. That's a goal. I think the areas that were covered, as I was mentioning in the past, are those outskirts areas of, Seville, Lodi, those areas that are tougher to get to, but we still are committed to providing those services on the outreach of the county as well in our demand service. Our operations expenses are down, just trying to meet that goal of maintaining cost and as the ridership is remaining strong. We're really looking at our agency contracts right now, and I've got those out to the different agencies. Many have returned. Just increasing costs slightly per mile to meet our rising cost. A lot of agreeable folks out there and getting a lot of cooperation, and they're seeing the benefit as well. The agencies are not a lot of blinking when it comes to the increase, so I'm happy about that. Hopefully we can continue to provide service at the level we have. So, not a lot to report. We are staffing up. I think the hiring of drivers has been the highlight of my last couple of months. Nice to see good folks coming in. We have some very caring people with a lot of heart to help people driving. I talked to all of them. They come with a experience of helping people, and they like what they're doing, which helps out there with the customers. It's showing. Get customer compliments. So, okay.
Well, I see our denial rate is down.
Controllable,
It's
20.
controllable, right.
And
Yeah.
I think with some of the additions of newer staff and things that we're able to fill shifts, and maybe on those additional days of dialysis days, Wednesdays and Fridays, we can work harder to meet those needs and have 0. It's a goal that we set for ourselves.
Yep. I think the telling number I always like to look at is that cost per passenger. We've increased that. I mean, last year, 2023 was
Right.
$37.17 per passenger.
Right.
We're now down to $33.86. We have more passengers with about the same amount of money. So that's awesome.
With the
Much
rising
more
cost of all the
efficient.
things, that is great, isn't it?
It is,
Good to see.
absolutely.
The team's working really hard, and I'm
Yep.
really happy to report that.
Super, great.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, good job.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Debbie Kiley, our Job and Family Services Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First, 2 resolutions for your consideration. The first is a resolution authorizing the county auditor to transfer funds from the Children's Services 4E Fund to the Public Assistance Fund. This is for children's services expenditures. And the next is a resolution authorizing the county auditor to transfer funds from the Children's Services SCPA Fund to the Public Assistance Fund, also for Children's Services expenditures.
Move to approve both resolutions?
Second.
Move in second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes.
Updates.
Yep, please.
First, two quick reminders. The agency is hosting its Coats for Kids event, and that is next Tuesday, the 29th, from 6 to 8. It's at the Eagles on Lafayette Road. The Medina County children in grades K through 12 with a parent or guardian, they can come and select a coat. We do want the children to be there to ensure a good fit. It is one coat per child, but so long as the parent is there with the child, we have over 100 coats for children to choose from, so there will be a lot of options. The agency is also hosting its 4th annual toy drive for the holidays. We're accepting new unwrapped gifts to provide for the youth in our foster care. The event is November 16th from 9 to noon, and will once again be at 2 locations like we were last year, at our office, the Northland Drive address, and then St. Mark's Church in Brunswick. We're also accepting we're accepting gifts now. You don't have to wait till November 16th. But we also accept gift cards and cash donations. It doesn't need to only be unwrapped toys or gifts. The teens in our care really like gift cards because adults aren't cool and don't buy them the right things. So they really like gift cards to stores like Target, Best Buy, Amazon, things like that. And cash donations help us purchase gifts that we haven't yet received that might be on a child's wish
So you
list.
still have the wish list online for people to go shop? Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to Amazon and search for us, you should find our wish list. I'm going to have that put. I looked this morning because I thought for sure it was posted on our website and it wasn't there, so I'm going to get that uploaded
We'll
soon.
make sure we put it in the newsletter this week, too.
Yep, I shared it with Brian, so
Yeah.
both of these events will be in the
Super.
newsletters.
Good.
And 3 shout-outs. Jen's Play and Learn. This is the same child care provider that earlier this summer held a lemonade stand with her kiddos that she has in care. And she donated all those proceeds to our children in foster care. She did a walkathon earlier this month, raising funds to purchase holiday gifts for our children in foster care. And she raised over $1,300. So she's going to send a check to us to purchase gifts. Yeah, it was just fantastic. So we continue to be so grateful for her continued support. And then a new supporter is Tammy Barrett of Tees Bargain Beauties. It's an online retailer. She holds live events and sells clothing online, but she did a Facebook live event earlier this month, and that effort was for the Coats for Kids campaign. She collected over 240 hats and gloves, and it says numerous coats. She didn't give a number on that. So we've had some amazing support in the community for all that we're doing. And last but certainly not least, a Medina County mom and her son were recently selected as Family of the Year. It's an award that's given at the state's Child Protective Conference. So here's just a glimpse of her journey, because it is indeed a long one, so I'll give you an honestly abbreviated version. But she had over 15 years of substance use. She was also a victim of domestic violence. She had lost custody of her 2 daughters, and she was on felony probation and had multiple warrants for her arrest. Her license was suspended until 2030, and she also faced being homeless with her new son. When she began working with our agency under a sobriety program, this was to reunify her and her son. She was assigned both a case manager and a peer mentor. And a peer mentor is someone who has what they call lived experience. They have been involved in the child protective system as a parent, lost custody of their child, all while they had co-occurring things with substance use. But they had also received their children back into care and had lived a life of sobriety. So it's a person who can relate to the trauma and the cycle that they're going through. So that team worked with her to enter inpatient treatment, and it also helped her turn herself in on all her warrants, and that is no easy decision. She actually and her case manager sat outside this courthouse for nearly 2 hours while she weighed the decision about, do I want to turn myself in? She did. She ultimately turned herself in. She served nearly 3 weeks in jail, but upon release, she immediately returned to inpatient treatment, then outpatient treatment once she successfully graduated from that program. And then after outpatient, she went into aftercare and then returned to a sober living residence. She graduated our drug court program in March of just this past year, and then regained her driving privileges after not being able to drive for over 12 years. She is now celebrating 14 consecutive months of sobriety, and she is out there sharing her story with the community as a beacon for others in not only the recovery community, but for all of us, right? This acknowledgement from the state is no small feat. The entire state of Ohio awarded this woman Family of the Year for her efforts. So I just wanted to share that story with you all.
Good story.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's it.
All right, excellent.
That's it.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
right, Stacy Malaker. Superintendent.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
So some things I want to share with you. Momentum Refresh, our mobile restroom unit. We had recently had 3 events that we were at. We were at the Medina Meadows Fall Festival, September 22nd, Medina Fall Festival, the 28th, and we were just at the Wadsworth's Scare on the Square. And we had a total of 115 visitors to the unit. So
Wow.
we're excited. It is booked through all of next year. We're trying to make sure that we're getting out to some other communities so that we have an opportunity to open those events to all people. So I'm really excited about it, so you'll probably hear me talk about it more. But it's a wonderful thing. October is National Disability Employment Month. So a couple stats I want to share with you. Unemployment rate for people without disabilities is 4.3%. People with disabilities, it's 9.1%. More often, people with disabilities are twice as likely to work part-time, even though they want to work full-time. The average cost for workplace accommodation for someone with a disability is about $500. So it's not a huge cost for businesses to accommodate.
An annualized number, or do you know?
I believe it is an
Okay,
annualized number.
okay, yeah.
There's a lot of things that are just really simple that
Right.
don't cost anything
Right.
that people can do, and just about being creative. Companies, we have found that companies that focus on disability inclusion had 28% higher revenue and 30% higher profit margins than those that did not prioritize that. So another interesting statistic. What we do find, and this will come to as no surprise to anybody, that the biggest barriers for employment for people with disabilities is obviously the stereotypes, the misconceptions of their abilities, lack of accessibility, transportation challenges. We know that is a challenge for Medina County in general, more so for people with disabilities. Their fear of losing benefits, raising above that benefit line. Limited opportunities for education and training. So those are just some of the things that, during the month, or actually year-round, that we focus on, and how can we build those bridges and overcome some of those barriers. The other thing I want to share with you, I believe I shared it the last time I was here. We had a interactive technology expo over at the Summit Mall. We partnered with Summit County Board of DD, and great success. We had great attendance, a lot of vendors, a lot of good information was shared. So we're going to do it again next year. And the importance of this really is that there's a lot of technology out there that can make life more accessible, more break down some barriers, just make life a little easier to navigate. And there's a lot of simple stuff out there, as well as some very high-tech stuff. So again, we're going to keep. It's a big initiative that we keep working with. Leadership Academy graduates, they were here. They've completed. We're very excited about that. And we'll look again next year to do another class. We're looking at, with the graduates too, is like, what can we do, kind of like some refreshers or gathering, and keep them together and moving in a direction towards their goals. So we're very excited about that. The other thing that's really cool is we've started, the DSPU has kicked off again with the Career Center, and it's a partnership with them. And I believe there's about 16 young people that have elected to be part of that. So all good stuff that's going on. So
Good.
Do you still, you mentioned the technology, do you still have the simulated home environment at
Yes.
your facility?
yeah, we do.
Are people in there regularly taking advantage of that, or is that, do you set appointments, or how does that work if somebody's?
We do set appointments,
Yeah.
and we have 2 staff that really work with that. So they are out working with families. They have assessments, so they'll work with the SSAs and the families to go out and assess. But yes, we have people coming in and looking at stuff in real time.
Yeah.
And we've got a living room, a kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom's kind of set up.
Yeah, I think it's a really good way to kind of get
is.
people aware of what some of the tools that
Yeah.
are out there. So, and then the other question you mentioned about the employment, and occasionally you hear things just casually. So
Sure.
are there any trends in either direction of more inclusive employment or less inclusive employment, or is it getting harder to find employment locally? Do we see anything like that, even just kind of anecdotally? Recently?
I think that we're seeing more inclusive-ness.
Yeah.
I know for instance, we worked with, I want to say Marigold, and we had an individual working there, their entrance, we were able to use some ARPA funds to create, an automatic button, open door. And, something as simple as that
Right.
is a life changer. So, yeah, we are seeing more of it.
Good.
We just had the Assistant Superintendent Annie and our Operations Director, Bobby Richards, have been going out to working with the county libraries. And they've just gone in and just did a walkthrough with them and just said, hey, what are some things that would make this a little more accessible or friendly? And, just real simple things. It's not, kicking out a wall. It's, how do you set things up? And, you've got places, counters for wheelchairs. Is it accessible? I mean, do we have it so people can get to it? So just some real simple things that, we're trying to get out. And people want to know. People are asking for it. So,
Good.
yeah,
Good.
it's a good trend. We're seeing good movement.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Good job. Next, we have Heather McDermott, the Board of Elections, here to give us an update as to what's going on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we have an election going on, if no one noticed. So Election Day is November 5th, and some very important dates are for early voting right now. We're going to see if we can get focused on. So our extended hours, we are voting right now, Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 6.
There we go.
This way.
There we go.
Yeah. Yep.
Oop,
Oh, good.
8 to 6.
That would be 8 a.m., right? 8 a.m.
Oh, I
to 6
brought the wrong post.
p.m. Yeah.
That's all right.
I was just testing you.
Yep.
8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. We're open this weekend, Saturday 8 to 4, and Sunday 1 to 5. Next week, we're open Monday 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Excuse me. And Tuesday 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. And Wednesday through Friday 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And then the weekend again, Saturday 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Sunday 1 to 5. Early voting is at our office only at 3800 Stonegate Drive, Suite C, the Medina County Board of Elections. And again, Election Day is November 5th, if no one knows. And so far, we've been quite busy in the office. We have had 15,000, just over 15,000 people successfully come through our office and vote. We've seen a lot more than that, getting information and requesting absentee ballots by mail, information on the different issues that are on the ballot throughout the county and the state. Mm-hmm. We have UOCAVA voters for military and overseas ballots, hand carry, nursing home voting going on. We urge you to send in your applications right away if you want your ballot by mail. There is a pretty significant delay in getting your ballot mailed to you. The biggest lag time are those that were mailed October 8th, 9th, and 10th. Our office mailed just under 20,000 those 3 days. So those are the largest calls we're getting. And if you call or email our office, we will reissue your ballot if you're concerned about getting it in time.
So some of the people who were mailed that day still haven't gotten theirs?
Correct.
That's
Well,
interesting.
that is, yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's the post office.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it wasn't your operation. You mailed them. It's out of your
We,
hands. Okay, got it.
we delivered them to the USPS in Medina,
Okay, all right.
and they've not been sent to their destination. And
Interesting.
That
Wow.
is really interesting.
so if you're worried
Wow.
that you haven't received your ballot yet, contact our office and we will reissue your ballot. And you also have the option as the voter to come into our office and vote early, or you can vote a provisional ballot on election day. If you're wondering how we can reissue a ballot, our system is set up to only accept one ballot per voter. So it'll stop your ballot, a second ballot, from being checked in. It won't let us proceed. And so it'll go into this other pile. And on election day, you vote a provisional ballot because all of those ballots get verified before they're accepted or not accepted, because they'll check if your absentee ballot came in. And then it'll be decided by the board which ballot would be accepted. It'll be also vetted to see if you voted a provisional ballot in an, so if you moved from another county, it'll see if you have voted in that other county, if you're registered in another county, all the other reasons that you may have voted a provisional ballot.
So if for some reason those, 20,000 that you mailed, you could have significant provisional ballots on election day.
Is that
We
number, 20,000 weren't mailed on the 8th? That's the total that
that's-
have been mailed?
That's the total.
No, the first
That's
3
the-
days.
yeah.
That's the total
So
of
on
the
the
first 3
8th, we
days.
mailed just over 17,000, and the 3 days were about 20,000. In
8th,
our
9th, and
first
10th.
4 batches.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You may need to be
Yeah, we've
ready
only
for a
rec-
significant number of provisionals.
correct.
Yeah.
So, explain to the public, I know the rules have changed now, in returning those absentee ballots that you received in the mail, you can obviously mail them. I don't know what the first, given the size, what's the typical postage?
$1 and a penny.
So $1 and
This
a penny,
election.
gonna cost you about $1 to get it back, or before
Or-
you could have somebody take it in for you. Now you have to be either a spouse or the individual. Would that be correct? In order to take it physically back to the Board of Elections.
Correct. And if you're bringing it back for someone else, there's an affidavit that you have to sign.
Yeah.
That you are bringing it back for someone. So if you come into the office, we have the forms for you, or you can get them on Secretary of State's website. And if you have a disability, that form is also on the same sheet of paper that we would have you fill out if you're dropping that off for someone else. And it also states on the form everyone that can help return that ballot for
What
you.
about the drop box? Can they put it in the drop box?
They can.
So what happens to those in a drop box that don't have an affidavit then?
There's a sign posted on that as well. And
that says you have to be the person. So you're basically,
Yes,
it's an honor system?
with the rules as
Okay,
well. With the
And you have
state-
you have several workers standing near that box
Yes.
right now. There's a
We
lot of
do.
But not 24/7.
Oh, that's true.
we
Do you? I'm
not
just asking.
24/7.
Okay,
We
so
don't have the
somebody can come
payroll
at night.
for that.
What is a drop? No, it's a drop box. It was
Yes.
originally intended 4 years ago that anybody could drop in. It was secure, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But at this
It is
point, if
monitored
you're
24/7.
assuming that somebody puts it in a drop box that they are the authorized conveyor of
Yes.
that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just asking.
It's a new directive for this election
Right, this
that
is
we
unusual.
are
Yeah.
mandated to enforce by Secretary of State's office.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we are helping voters, we are directed to give them this form.
Yeah.
But it doesn't prevent them from coming and dropping it on their own, just as long as they've read the information that says they're following the rules.
Right, they should be
Gotcha.
dropping their own ballot or completing an affidavit and putting in the drop
Got
box
it.
as well.
Okay. Other question, this was in the news here this week. Presumably, we don't anticipate any issues barring unforeseen circumstances of having all of Medina County's votes counted on election day? With the exception of some of the absentees that roll in, but I mean, I I've heard some of these other places that say it's going to be, a week or so before they have their,
Pennsylvania.
Oh.
their counts done.
Well, that's
so.
Pennsylvania.
I was like, that, it was like, there's a lot of election news in the
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
news, so I don't foresee anything. So
Yeah.
in the state of Ohio, we're required to start processing absentee ballots as soon as we start early voting.
Right.
So we've started processing absentee ballots as soon as they come in.
Yep.
Got it.
We don't tabulate, but we start processing.
Right. Okay. Good. Which has been the procedure for some time
Yes.
to do that. Yep. Okay.
So for more election information, you can go to voteohio.gov. We also have public tests today at 2:30 at our office. And I foresee questions about public test.
Yeah, what are the things that are being tested on that? Since we briefly talked about that earlier.
So public test is the logic and accuracy test of the voting equipment that is going to the polls. So we've randomly picked 3 locations out of all of the 45 polling locations in that for this election. So those 3, we have a pre-audited group of ballots with a predetermined number of votes that we hand count, hand tally, and then we tabulate through the equipment going to the polls, and then compare them and make sure the results are the same.
Yep.
To determine that everything matches. And then compare everything to make sure all the devices and equipment work properly.
Great.
And all of the equipment going to the polls has already gone through our logic and accuracy testing. The last round of testing of our poll pads, electronic poll pads where you get checked in, will occur the end of this week. It gets loaded with the final data of who's voted early voting.
Great. And then it looks like from the numbers you shared, the total number of either in-office cast ballots or mailed absentees, is that the grand total at the bottom? So like
Yes.
35, 230 is the
So number requested so far is 35,230.
Yeah.
And the number returned so far is 22,355 votes cast.
And that includes, so that's all of the ones that have been done in office, because those are
Yes.
returned, they're calculated as returned when they're there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the short sheet is just the categories they can do in the office that we have to process on site.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. Everything else we can do email or processing. It could be a problem application, like someone did not complete all of the required fields on their application, and we've had to contact them to complete a new application, to let them know they're not a registered voter, or we need more information.
But you're definitely going to set a record for early voting this year.
Nothing's definite.
Oh.
Looks like it's going to be. I just want to make it clear to the public, too, that you mentioned about taking the 3 machines just at random.
Yes.
Looking at, but according to law, every machine has to go through logic testing and accuracy, correct?
Yes,
Every one. So this is just like a double check.
absolutely,
All right,
yes.
I just want to make it clear, because
So-
it might be, people hearing it might say, oh, yeah, you only did it at random.
Oh, no.
But every machine has to go through that logic test and accuracy.
Yes,
before
every
they can be
machine
used.
has
Correct, okay.
by Board of Elections staff that we have hired
Right, okay.
to be actual county employees to do the testing
Right,
with set predetermined votes.
okay,
Yeah.
Great.
all right. Well, very good. Well,
Thank
thank you,
for-
appreciate
For
it.
being
Thank you,
here.
Heather.
Thanks.
Time of year.
All right. Commissioners' resolution. We have a resolution commending the Medina County Career Center on 50 years of service to the community. There's an open house this Sunday from 2 to 5, and I know there are going to be presentations at 5 o'clock at the end of that. This is to be included with those. So,
Move to approve.
Second.
moved and second. Any discussion?
You know, just every time, I mean, we were there last week, I think all of us were at the chamber meeting that they had there for Northern Medina, and the building has aged very well through a lot
Oh,
of
it's
great care.
wonderful.
So keep up the good work, and really happy to be part of the 50-year celebration.
Oh, yeah, indeed. It has helped so many people, so many families in 50 years. Unbelievable that it's that old.
Yeah.
All right. Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes, all right. We have another approving the reappointment of our B or apiary inspector, the County of Medina, Michael J. Moan of Medina as our bee inspector for the year 2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. I see the hourly rate of $20 an hour. This is one of those historic ones. In other words, a long history of the county commissioners employing an apiary inspector. Started way back about a century ago. There used to be a tax on every beehive, and the treasurer collected the tax, and the money for the beehive then went to pay for the apiary. They eliminated the funding for the apiary inspectors, but not the obligation of the commissioners to pay for it. Things stay the same.
Well, my understanding of the more recent history of
Yeah.
that position is I'm really glad we're
finding
reappointing him
somebody.
for the second time.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
from my understanding from speaking with our friends at Soil and Water who help in that process, that
Yeah.
he's doing good work, and there's certain limitations on how much you can do in that world.
That's right,
Because
yeah.
there's only so much funding, but he seems to be doing a great job. So happy to have him back for another year.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Did we get a motion in a second?
Yeah.
Okay, roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes, all right. That's it for Commissioner's resolution. Now open up to public comment. Mr. Sheets, anything? Okay, opportunity. You're the public here. I know Kimberly's here, maybe for a discussion session. It appears. Okay, good. All right. We'll go ahead and do that. I guess we'll go ahead and move into discussion session. Matt, do you have anything? Okay. Brett?
I do.
Come on.
So this is more from the IT side of things. I just wanted to update you guys as we are beginning our Microsoft licensure process again for several groups in the county. Over the years, we have followed a largely decentralized process that I've taken a review of and found that it's created a lot of different problems throughout the county, with different licensing structures being purchased, some not including things that we could make great use out of, other licenses being improperly chosen for an effort to avoid having to have a higher cost that's billed to each department. Some departments relying on older software in order to avoid licensing altogether. And again, in an effort of cost cutting. Obviously, as the finance officer, I'm pretty sure you guys can understand I love the frugality, but there is a point where it becomes insecure. So in an effort to bring the entire county up to a better standard for security of our backbone, which is becoming a concern, I would like to bring our Microsoft licensure under the Commissioner's IT department, as that is the department that is tasked with backbone protection. And then through that, we would we would purchase the correct licensures countywide for all departments and elected officials as needed. That way, we know that everybody is going to have the licensing that they need. We will be on task with Microsoft's licensing program, which I found that in a couple areas we might have been a little deficient on in the past, so we want to correct those.
And we got an economies of scale price.
Yes, and there is, as you go up in the ranks with cost structures for Microsoft, along with many other companies, we do save a little bit in that process. I think there's also a great savings in the idea of not requiring the individual departments to keep reinventing the wheel and figuring out ways to get around or to pick licensing that they think that they will get through their bare minimums, but then ends up actually impacting workflow down the line, whether through their employees or through our IT department that then has to support those licenses after the fact.
The efficiency and kind of uniformity of it makes great sense. We had another action related to the cost allocation study.
Mm-hmm.
This would be then completely excluded from that, or would this be factored in that in some way? Or, I mean, as it relates to that, maybe IT spend generally, is there a plan to tie that in to that component of it, or what does the lay of the land look like from there?
So this is actually a great discussion from my end. So I'll try not to get lost in the weeds here because obviously I love this stuff, but nobody else does. So I will try to spare you all on that. In the grand scheme of things, the answer is yes. This is something that becomes includable in what is called our indirect costing plan. And indirect costing is when we take centralized services from from the county-wide net that are paid for by the general fund, and we apportion that out across the county's additional funds to help kind of bring the general fund back to whole. The neat thing about indirect costs and our work with Maximus is that we can tailor that plan to include different cost centers that we are concerned about. IT presently has a separate fund, but that separate fund is entirely paid for out of the general fund, which essentially means that it is a general fund group. It probably as a separate item should be pulled back into RGF at some point just so that we can properly identify costs. But that's a separate issue. As it stands, having that separate fund, we can break down through our costing plan the cost of things such as individual Microsoft licensures, an average cost per system or per user that are on the backbone in a much nicer way than we presently have available to us. We then have the ability, this will be part of our indirect costing plan, but then we have the ability to dictate whether or not we wish to pass this cost on to additional funds, because as a separate line item, we can break it out and either absorb that cost through the general fund, or we can choose to pass that on to individual funds that are outside of the general fund.
So will that decision be made based on what we find out in our updated study, or is that a decision we have to make to direct the study that will be happening?
Nope, that is a decision that we can make once we have determined the results from the indirect costing.
Okay.
We are not bound by having the costing plan. We are not bound to enforce every single line item of it. I'm a big fan of more data is better. So I break it down as granularly as we can without losing sight of what it is we're trying to capture. So these figures will be in there, but it will be up to a discussion and your choice as to what we choose to allocate afterwards.
Makes sense.
From a general strategic standpoint, I think that this is an important change because IT, and particularly backbone security, really are a centralized service and a responsibility of doing business and functioning as a county. I think it's important that we are securing our data properly and that our systems are functioning at an efficiency level that allows employees to do the best work that they are capable of doing. Present methods that we have, I think, do tend to get in the way a little bit of employee efficiency and solutions.
Well, I think, I mean, if those best practices are being recommended by the IT group that essentially is the commissioner's IT group, then it seems that it should follow logically that the cost component of those recommendations would kind of start there, and then we, subject to whatever further discussions we have about how those things get allocated out amongst departments. So conceptually, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I will point out there are some departments that aren't part of that countywide, that licensing, Board of Elections is separate. They've got their own IT and security. Job and Family Services is another one, I believe.
I believe both of those are provided through their state
Through the state
licensing agreements.
yeah,
So
okay.
Will be not having those, but then otherwise all departments and officials would be included on
Yeah.
this net.
But the way I see it, I understand potential efficiencies and so forth, kind of reallocating the resources appropriately. But the driving force, I think, is cybersecurity.
Yes.
That is. And if you've seen what happened over in Franklin County, in fact, there was just a headline today in today's dispatch about them still being down, the millions of dollars that they've had from their incident. They're still trying to get control of their computer system because of that, and basically it's a cybersecurity.
City of Cleveland had the same thing earlier this year.
Yeah, and it's huge. And so at this point, it's not if, it's when, and we need to do this in order to make sure that we're not one of those in the list of victims.
This does also, I will note at this point, this is one of a minimum of, I believe that there will be 4 total licensures that are going to fall under this umbrella, and every one of them is based around cybersecurity and the requirement to strengthen our backbone protection. The Microsoft licensure is by far the most expensive. The general fund last year spent about $140,000 on its Microsoft license. For the same amount of users that we have presently that we covered last year, we would be at right around 200. However, we are going to cast a wider net with this, and it will then incorporate offices that have previously kind of done it themselves. I think that it's important to note that this will generate a cost savings down the line, with administrative abilities to control other security measures that have been recommended by the data board, which include us being able to utilize multi-factor authentication and endpoint protection, as well as email filtering that we currently provide to commissioner departments, but now we can spread that net out a little bit and capture some of the other systems that are currently connected to our backbone but do not have the same levels of protection as we have developed in-house.
All right. Any other comments on this one? All right. You'll be proceeding, and we'll have a lot more discussion about this, I'm sure.
Yep.
Very good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate it. All right. Jeremy, is there, okay, yeah.
I don't know if Linda has some.
Pardon me? Linda, did you have anything?
No.
Okay.
Jeremy, no pressure, but we just came out of the enthralling discussion of both IT and finance simultaneously, so try not to bring down the energy in the room.
How about those Browns?
Yeah, how about those?
Today I would like to talk to you about our new Code of Regulations for review. I have a copy of the 3 books there. Essentially, our what we call now our rules and regulations was last updated in 2013. So it was time to kind of reevaluate our rules and regulations. We had worked with a law firm out of Columbus, and I worked with Mike Lyons at the prosecutor's office. They basically rewrote the entire document. So I'm not, to go through and say, hey, this is what changed, this is what changed, is going to be basically everything did. But I did want to kind of just quickly go over a few of the chapters here. We got about 12 chapters in this document here. I'm just going to kind of highlight just real quickly some of the main focuses of each chapter. For instance, Chapter 1 is basically just general provisions for the sewer and water, and we have talked about definitions in there, developer requirements for extensions, access to the property, general terms, and then damages to the water and sewer system. Again, some of this stuff wasn't even covered in our original document, which is now being covered, so we are protected a lot better now. The second is just sewer regulations, where they talk, Chapter 2, where it talks about grease oil interceptors, public record request, and then also low pressure grinder pump systems. Chapter 3 talks about water system regulations, unauthorized activities, water meters, adequate supply of potable water, and the primary function of the water system. That's actually kind of an interesting one. In our current rules and regs, it does state that the primary focus of our water system is to provide potable water to residents. Fire protection will be provided when it can be as a secondary function, but it is not the primary function of the system. So, Chapter 4 is kind of a little bit longer one here. That has our connections, fees, permits, and billings. So one thing I kind of want to touch on this is actually delinquencies and shutoffs. The process in which we would currently follow, we needed to revise that to meet Ohio Revised Code. So basically, when there is a delinquency and we want to shut someone's water off, we have to provide them a notice. They have X number of days to respond to that notice. And then we can, as a courtesy, we can put a door knocker on their property to let them know it'll be turned off. But what currently would be just like a week-long process for us, it will now turn into like a 2 to 4 week process, depending if the resident or property owner is going to fight the shut-off policy. So Chapter 4 has a lot of, the whole procedure for our shut-offs will be changing with the adoption of this new code of regulations. So that is something that I did want to bring to your attention. It spells it out very clearly on how that process is to be, how we're supposed to go through that process. Also, we have in here, we talk about certification of delinquent balances. We also talk about hardship situations, and then just how adjustments will be processed with accounts. Say someone calls in with they missed a billing or missed paying their bill for the first time in a couple of years. We'll give them a grace and waive their penalty. So it kind of just touches on that. I know this is a lot of information for you to digest here, so. But any questions on anything so far?
I'll just say, largely, this is not new. This is just a refinement and updating. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Especially like with the shut-off sequence and so forth, that because of the state legislature, it had modified the law. But largely, this is just not all brand new. Most of the contractors and everybody have been operating, and designers of all these requirements have been pretty much in place. It's just slightly updated.
Getting them codified in the
Yeah. Okay.
Chapter 5 is just our design criteria. I'm not going to bore you too much on that, but basically we just moved all over our design criteria from our current book, updated some minor things here and there, but essentially it's the same information there. Chapter 6 here, water and sewer construction procedures. This section actually it has been improved for us. It talks about the obligations of the owner through construction guarantees, inspections, plan review, construction observation fees, substantial completion, maintenance guarantees, like a maintenance bond at the end of the project. So this just more clearly establishes the requirements of the owner here. So that is a win for us there. We also in Chapter 7 talk about contractor registrations here. These are contractors that are doing work for residents or property owners, just to make sure that they are properly bonded, that they are they have like a safety acknowledgement, indemnification of the county. So that just more that document has been living outside of our rules and regulations for the most part. So bringing that into this document, with everything else, was important. Chapter 8, our septic hauler requirements. We actually had a septic hauler document. Again, it was passed in a resolution, not within our rules and regulations. So adding that document into this code of regulations, just to bring everything into one place. The Chapter 9, 10, and 11, those were chapters that we really didn't discuss, and that has to do with cross-connection controls, and that's more your backflow booster pumps type thing. And then you have your wellhead protection for well sites, and then just some administrative forms that we call out, but we don't actually include in the document in the event that we ever need to adjust them. And then also Chapter 12 is our industrial pretreatment chapter. Now we are working with one of our consultants to update that chapter as a whole, But that won't happen, I think, for another, I'm going to say 6 to 9 months. So that's just kind of the gist of the new code of regulations. And, if you're ever bored and want to read through and have a thrilling conversation, by all means, reach out. One other piece that I would like to talk to, which I included as a insert. Oh,
Real quick
yeah.
on the code of regulations, I mean, presumably this all aligns with applicable law. That's probably a big,
Yep.
big driver of the change. But where it's not dictated by law, you're comfortable that it aligns with kind of the procedures and things that we already have in place. So we're not
Yep.
recreating things to fit this. This fits how we're doing things.
Correct. Yeah, we took a look at our existing rules and regs and then incorporated stuff from that
Yep.
into this, and then also added the applicable laws to
So that
this.
should extend the lifespan of this and not
Exactly.
requires many modifications going forward.
Correct.
So, yep.
It'll be more design criteria stuff moving forward unless there's law changes that need to get addressed.
Great.
Aside from that, one other thing that as part of this document, it refers to what we call a fee and charge schedule. Now, we do have a document already for fees and charges, and this is just general charges and fees that we had administered through our office, like our permitting fees or labor. If we have to go out, someone hits a hydrant with their vehicle and we have to replace the hydrant, it explains the fees that we would do for our materials and labor for replacing that. But one of the downfalls of that document was it didn't have our sewer or water rates in there. Those were part of resolutions in separate documents. Our septage rates, that was in a separate document. So the idea here was to basically bring everything into one fee schedule document here. This way that anytime we pass our or have to update fees, it's just in one document. You don't have to go looking through 4 different documents to try and find where that price is. So as you can see inside, we tried to, when I was working with Mike Lyons on this, we tried to make this flow as best as we could. So like your section 1 would be permit, access, and tap fees. So here we have our permit application fee, our system investment fee for sewer and water customers when they want to connect to the sewer water system. There's a plan review charge on that. Just our physical tap charges, curb box pricing. So we put all those individual items in there because sometimes someone will come in and they busted a box or their landscaper hit a box, so they can come in here and all of our fees are all identified in this document. When you get to section 2, which I believe is page 4 on your document, that's where we start these sanitary sewer and water rates. So everything here is our current rates, but just everything is just laid out, I think, very nicely. It identifies all of the fees that we charge. I included the septic disposal rates, the sewer rates for our sewer charge and debt fee charges. Our water rates are there. The bulk water rate, which was done in a resolution back in, I think it was late 2000s. Our meter costs. So, and also I included our industrial pretreatment rates. Those rates were originally in our rules and regulations, so I took those rates and put them here. This way, in the event that those rates ever need to get adjusted, we don't have to pass an amended code of regulation document. We can just update our fee charges. So that was the thought process there. And then a lot of the sections 3, 4, 5, those are just kind of miscellaneous charges that we charge developers for testing and equipment and labor. One note is that ODOT actually has an equipment document that they produce every year for if you had to use a truck or a dump truck. It gives us pricing for that. So the idea is to follow their document as far as our charges, and they post that publicly every year. And then our labor charges follow the prevailing wages through the state of Ohio. So I know this is a lot of information, but just kind of wanted to get this in your hands for review. I don't know if you had any questions regarding the code of regulations or the fee schedule?
Well, we are going to be continuing to discuss this. This is a draft. The
Yep.
idea is to adopt this and then it to take effect January 1st.
The fee
Correct?
schedule,
The
correct.
fee schedule as well as the code of regulations, correct?
Yep.
Okay, right. And then but the fee schedule, you do have a proposal also to increase the sanitary sewer rate and the water.
Correct.
Water rates.
Yep.
And I know you've asked, and I think as part of our discussion is to schedule at least 2 public hearings. The intent would be for us, hopefully, to take some kind of action by middle November 12th, I think it was.
Correct.
So that in time for the first bills that are going out, people have at least one bill cycle before they know what the new rates are going
We
to
can
be.
put notifications in the bill at the end of, in November and December to notify the customers of the upcoming
Yeah.
changes
The
if
la-
there are.
Apparently, the last change we made was between, and people, the same bill that they got with the increase was the first time that many of them saw that there was going to be an increase.
Yeah.
So we want to get ahead of that, and
Correct.
the intent would be to have these public hearings. I think, Rhonda, you've already looked at our schedules, and
I
we
have.
try to schedule those for,
I have October 29th at 1:30. We have a 1 o'clock public hearing scheduled already for the road vacation. So this would
Right.
follow at 1:30. And the second one, November 4th at 5 p.m.
okay. So we'll have the public hearings, we're gonna, it would make some sense to me to also, at least as part of the public hearing, have the code of regulations likewise review.
Yep.
I do want to also publicly let you know, right now, we're working on a provision that in those public hearings, that you would be able to see these and on social media, on Facebook, and also be able to post a comment live. So we would be able to include that in the public hearing documentation. So even, that'll be the first time we'll be doing something like that, but the idea is to allow you, as the audience, you don't have to be here, but you can go ahead and post your public comment. But you will have to identify who you are. I can't do it anonymously, and be recognized, and we'll make sure that that comment gets included in the public record for the hearing. And we're working with Medina TV to kind of make that technology work. The idea is to obviously provide greater access to that information well before they see that. And Jeremy will be going more into I guess the justification for the increases from a budgetary standpoint. If that sounds agreeable.
Yeah,
The board?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as long as we can manage that comment system, I'm a little anxious
Sure.
about that, but I think that's a good way to let people interact. if it-
Experiment.
Yeah, if
We'll
it
try it.
works. The only other thought I had on this, it is not directly related to the documents that are in front of us, but while we're having this discussion, and kind of coming out of the public meeting we had, special meeting we had to discuss the Chippewa project and everything else, is as we look to the future and having some big expenses coming our way, how do we increase the number of customers we have in the system? And so when we see the investment fee and things like that, I know that historically there's been some efforts to maybe modify those or waive those for certain periods of time that have had some mixed benefits coming back to the system. But I'd like to be always thinking of creative ways to get more people on the systems, particularly the types of users that can help move the needle when it comes time for us to spread the cost of some of these capital improvements into the project. So I'm just mentioning that not because I expect anybody has the answer on those things, but just so it's at least top of mind as we move forward here in the coming years. So,
Would it be possible to have the draft code of regulations available on the website so people could download it?
Sure.
Yeah, let's make sure we put
That's
that,
good
and we
document.
modify so we make
Yeah.
a notification there that people, if they want to see the lengthy document that it is, and especially the contractors and so forth, we can
And-
include.
and the proposed
and the
fees.
proposed, the proposed fees, to have these documents available for people to download well before our public hearings.
I can also highlight the proposed, any potential increase.
Sure.
I can highlight those or make notation of
That'd be great. Yeah, so if we could have that we can get those documents out there for the public to review well in advance.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's some dry reading, though. I'm going to warn you.
Well, there are those that have a financial interest who probably take it with great interest.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other comments?
No, I appreciate the time that's gone into this, and I think some of this cleanup stuff is good. It's not easy work, and it is kind of dry work, but it's important.
Yeah.
So
It's been about a year and a half of working on this between
Yeah.
Mike Lyons and the other firm. So
Yeah. And I know you met with the city of Medina, and I know Kimberly Marshall's here as well as Bethany. You've had some meetings with them. Kimberly, did you have some comments? Did you want to come?
needed to come up.
We need to come up, sorry, because the audio doesn't work as well over there. Heather, you don't have to stay if you don't need to.
Oh, come on, get it.
Okay.
Heather's phone's up here. She needs
I was wondering why.
She's like hostage.
Such great interest here in our sewers and our water. It's like, okay. I was like, but thank you. All right, yes, you had some.
So, thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. So just a couple questions on Jeremy's notes. I was trying to take a few notes here. And maybe it's more of a question for Jeremy. You mentioned proposed rate increases. Is that for residential and business industrial, or can you clarify that? Is that like across the board?
It was for the sewer and water rates.
So it would be ERUs.
Rates.
Yeah, it'd be bill rates. Yeah, it would affect both commercial and residential. Yep.
Okay. And my other question you already answered was about the draft proposal.
gonna
You
get
said
that
you're
out.
gonna load that
Yep.
to the website.
Yep.
And do you think like that will happen this week, or when might we be able
Should.
to
As
As soon as you can
access
get it to me,
that?
we can get it up there.
I'll get to you probably today.
Okay.
Later today.
Later
Yeah.
today.
Yep.
And you're going to show the changes on the fees. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then the other item, Jeremy and I met, I guess that was October 7th, and we talked about some of the issues that we're having with some of our smaller businesses with a sanitary sewer permit fee. Everybody that comes through for occupancy now has to apply for a sanitary sewer permit and pay this $50 fee. So I think, Jeremy, we were gonna try to set up a separate time to discuss, or do you have an idea of when that might happen?
I guess it's really on the availability of Commissioner Hamley and, I mean, I don't.
We can sit down if you'd like, you can do a separate meeting or even prior to the public hearing. Obviously, as I understand, you want us to take a look at those individual smaller entities and see what if the ability to waive a fee.
is this the $50 fee we're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
the request is to respectfully ask the commissioners to give Jeremy the authority or you the authority to be able to waive this $50 fee on smaller projects, which we don't have to bog this meeting down with that, but that's really sort of the issue in a nutshell. I did pull some data together, which I sent to Jeremy.
I happen to see it, and I haven't had a chance to share it with the other commissioners.
Okay.
But obviously, you're just showing us the Medina. You're not showing us Brunswick, or we have a large system.
Well, part of that is because I don't know how the other cities operate, and
Yeah.
like we have an agreement
our-
with this county.
This is system-wide, correct? This applies system-wide, so any kind of waiver would then have to apply across our entire system. So we'll take a look at what you're proposing.
Is there a way, and I don't want to overcomplicate things, so I'm almost hesitant to mention this, but if the cost of the $50 application is an impediment to somebody moving forward, is there a way to put that into their billing? So they're paying it over the first couple months of the system, or?
You're talking about commercial operation, $50
I-
amortized over, that's a nothing fee.
Well,
Sorry.
I mean, I have a hard time believing that there's a lot of businesses that are struggling to pay that $50 in the first place. But if there were, if they said, well, look, we're pre-revenue, I mean, I agree. I think it seems unlikely that that's an impediment to businesses getting launched. But
Well, there's
if it
more
were-
to it than, respectfully, there's more
okay.
to it than just the $50.
well-
$50 in some cases is probably not an issue, but it's
Yeah.
really more about the issue and what's happening in the process. And so,
I think the-
$50 is only a part of the
We
story.
need to sit down as what the purpose of the fee is
Yeah.
and our process. As I understand it, and Jeremy is, obviously, that's where we need to sit down and we can get into
Yeah.
granularity, is over time, why this is in place and the benefit to the system, because we have properties that essentially have had issues in terms of how they distribute the changes in ownership and so forth, the lines, and we've been able to identify and get those issues resolved for our system and
Yep.
billing and so forth, because somebody's have taken a look and see that. The trouble is you have legacy issues in any systems, and this has enabled that to be able, but I think that's what complicates things, but it also enables us to make sure that we're not going to, from henceforth, not have any more new issues and try to resolve some of the older ones.
Well, and the other
When
part
it comes
of
to billing and things like that.
the other part of that is when
Yeah.
when you look at the $50, it's here, and I respectfully appreciate it's more than just that. But the other side to that is there's a permit that's secured after the construction's underway, which obviously isn't the way we want people to go about these things. But I'd hate for somebody to say, oh, well, that gets, there's a waiver, so I don't have to worry about even getting the, I just want to make sure everybody's
Yeah.
following the protocols. I think the application fee might be a way to kind of ensure that those protocols are followed, so.
Yeah, we could get into the issues
Yeah,
because
let's
the
do that.
issue that I'm bringing up has nothing to do with any kind of changes construction-wise
Okay.
to the property.
Yeah.
So my concern with this code of regulations moving forward, and I'm glad that you're having public hearings and, the process is taking some time to go through this process, because what I'm requesting, I don't know if this will go into this code of regulations. So I didn't want to see this get passed and then, oh, by the way, my request gets left out of it. So if we're able to meet sooner than later to at least have this conversation, that's my request.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's have further discussion after this. We can even have a special meeting if we need to.
Great.
If you want, but we'll make sure, I'll get you the documents. I just got them this morning, so.
Well, I trust you guys. I don't need to be a
Okay.
part of that. I just,
Okay.
those are my thoughts just off the cuff. so.
Okay.
Oh, we want you there.
He'll just complicate it.
Yeah, I have other bad ideas to bring up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bethany, did you have anything? Obviously, if you want to be involved in the conversations, we can. As indicated, it's just not the city of Medina. We make these changes. It's countywide, which impacts some of your area as well. All right. Anything else on this, Jeremy?
No, I think that wraps it up.
Thank you.
See, here I thought
Yeah,
that would be more interesting.
Okay.
We had gone out for the RFQ for the Fair Board proposals, and Friday was the deadline, and I'm happy to say we got 8 really nice proposals. I mean, world-class proposals. And so this week, Denise is doing executive summaries of each of the 8, creating binders. She's going to get the Fair Board a binder of the 8 proposals by the end of this week. Chris is putting together a rubric according to our RFQ guidelines and how we evaluate things. And so, moving right along. It was really, that last week we really, I think we had like 1 in, and I was really nervous. Then we got a bunch in on Friday, and they're all really good proposals. So that was very exciting. Second, Matt and Richard and I had been involved in potentially working with the city of Wadsworth on a contract agreement for Richard's, did I say Robert? Richard's department to handle the workload over at Wadsworth City. Matt just recently received a red line version of the contract. I reviewed it. It looks really good. So next steps are probably a resolution. If you guys are okay with moving forward with that.
Sure. Yeah, let's circulate it. Okay, do you need to get reviewed by the prosecutor at all on that one, or?
We can share it with you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty straightforward.
Super, good.
And
Good.
so I think it's a very efficient way to do things where it's centralized with Richard's people, and we'll move forward.
Good. Great. Anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Two things, both, I guess, construction related. We've obviously the parking lot here for anybody who's been trying to work their way in has been a challenge. So appreciate Matt had sent out a notice yesterday
Yes,
about some
thanks.
of the temporary solutions we have, and the specific dates until the curb and then the first and second pour happens here in within the next week. It seems like the worst of it will be over. But I think that the information about the curbside services is up on the website too. Or
I know it's on social media.
on social media. So for anybody who's following our meeting can probably track it down on social media too, because we're trying to make those services available for people who do need to use the facility in the meantime until that access is restored. So that's one construction update. But appreciate everybody's flexibility in the meantime, and obviously the end result's going to be hopefully worth the temporary inconvenience. And then the second, Law Library Resources Board, I think they have a meeting scheduled for this week. We're still waiting, as a county, we're still waiting on, and I think the city's still waiting on the timeline for their construction process to begin. So we don't definitively know when the law library will need to be relocated into its temporary space, but maintenance department has been working to get it ready to go. So as soon as we know more on that, we'll be communicating with the resources board. But I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that there's really no update. But when we have one, we'll be sure to pass it along. So.
Okay.
And that's just for people who are new to the situation. The city's construction in the 69 courthouse is going to require a temporary relocation of the law library.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that construction is done, it'll be moved back into the portion of the 69 courthouse, which is separate and apart from the space that's been leased by the city for the municipal court. So
Okay.
that's
Good.
it for me.
All right, very good. Just wanted to, because we had passed resolutions to support of some projects, the Ohio Public Works District 9 Natural Resources Assistance Council for the open space grants. We had the meeting Friday. There was the available funding cycle for our district was $1,577,428. In the ranking of the three projects, Yellow Creek Headwaters Preserve was the top scorer. They had a request of $1,415,353. That's the Park District. That was the request from Granger Township. That's one that's over there by Future Menards. As part of that, had 66.5 points out of 86.5 possible. The next was the Sandy Ridge Reservation Extension site improvements. Now that was in Lorain County, but that was just about 97,000. So that 1.5 or almost 6 million would be able to cover those two project costs. The third one, which was Sharon Township Cottonwood Preserve, we had the Lampion Electric come and make a proposal. They didn't score as well. They only got like 47 points, didn't score as well, which means they were asking for about $1 million. So at this point, there's not sufficient funds for that project to be funded as requested. These have been sent down to OPWC to make the final decision on that. But should those first two go, unlikely Cottonwood would have to go forward with They're not going to take a $1 million project and turn it down into $49,000.
No.
So the property owners are not going to do that kind of bargain sale. So those, I'm not sure what they're going to end up doing with that project. But that was the one. That was the first one that we had with portion of it as industrial property. I will say there was considerable discussion at NRAC regarding properties that are currently zoned as industrial, and I think that maybe that impact. I personally believe it impacted the score. Because of the concerns of taking industrial property and turning it into permanent parks and conservations. So at this point, that's the way the scoring is, but congratulations to the Medina County Park District for getting that project moving forward. Glad to see that happen. So that's all I've got. We have a request for executive session.
Yep, I would move to convene an executive session to consider the purchase of property.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Hambley?
Yes. All right. Everybody have a good day and enjoy the great weather we've got.
That was